All right, friends, let's do this CER example, which is on counterexamples. And before we start this example, let's talk about what a counterexample is. And let's write a definition up here. And counterexample is one word. And a counterexample is an example that proves a statement false. So in mathematics, when you make a statement, it has to always be true. So we use these things called counterexamples to prove a statement is false. So let's do an example for this. So it says, analyze the following statement. If a teacher lets you choose between the mean and the median of your test scores, you should always choose the median because the lowest score will be crossed off. Okay, let's think about this. So I think this statement has a point because in the median, you're going to cross off your lowest score because you're going to line them up in order. Let's say you have 3 scores. You're going to cross off this lowest and this highest one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to prove this statement false by coming up with an example, like a concrete example, that would show this statement's not always true. So I'm going to tell you this statement is not always true. Let's try to come up with an example first here. So one thing I notice about these is not only do I cross off the lowest score, but I'm also crossing off the highest score. So let's say we had an example like 70, 71, which are close together, and 100 for my test scores. So these are my 3 test scores. Okay, so the median is obviously going to be 71. Let's use a calculator and figure out the average, in which case I'll just add them up. So I would do 70 plus 71 plus 100, enter, divided by 3, and the average in this case is 80.3 repeating, and we said the median is equal to 71. So which would you rather have the teacher use? Well, in this case, I'd rather have the teacher use the average. And the median does cross off your lowest, but it also crosses off your highest. And in this case, the highest score is going to really pull that average up. And the median, these two are really close together. The median is close to my lowest score. So this is my counter example I'm going to use. So my claim in this case is going to be the statement is false. Okay, evidence. Now, in evidence, we're going to simply list our counterexample, and in our reasoning, we're going to explain why it's a counterexample. So I'm just going to say test scores, or a student has test scores of 70, 71, and 100. And then let's calculate, let's say what the average is. The average is equal to 80.3 repeating, and the median is equal to 71. So this is our counter example in this case. It's an example that proves the statement false. We found a specific example that shows that this statement is not true. All right, so let's do our reasoning right here. And I'm going to tell you, in reasoning, you must always use the word counterexample in the reasoning. Otherwise, you're going to lose credit for this. So we're going to say the statement is false because if you have test scores of 70, 72, and 99, no, 100, I got these wrong, 70, 71, and 100, the average of the scores is 80.3 repeating, and the median is 71. All right, so I need to state, remember I said we need to use the word counterexample. So now we need to explain why this is a counterexample. Well, it's a counterexample because the average is higher than the median. Therefore, you'd want the teacher in this case to use the average. So I'm going to say since the average is higher than the median, this is a counterexample that proves the statement false. Okay, notice again, I use the word counterexample, and anytime you're providing a counterexample, I would want you to use that word. So let's review kind of our goals with this. So we're using a counterexample, which is just an example that makes the statement false to prove a statement is false. And a counterexample is just a specific case. In this case, I came up with 3 scores where it would be beneficial for the teacher to use the average for the student versus the median. So that's my counterexample because it proves that we should not always choose, it says you should always choose the median, but you shouldn't always choose the median. It's going to depend on your scores. But we don't have to go into explanation of that. We just need to come up with an example that shows this statement is not always true. That's how we do counterexamples for these. All right, so there is one example for counterexample. Go ahead and give yours a shot for this evening and let us know if you have any questions.